Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am DS Rajora, Assistant Secretary General, ASSOCHAM. Sri Hemkumar Pandey, former Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, our chief guest today. Sri Gautam Bali, Chairman, Direct Selling Council, ASSOCHAM. Sri David Stanley, Managing Director, Helix International Private Limited. Madam Chavi Hemant, Founder, EBS India. Sri Manoj Sirodkar, Industry Expert and Consultant. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone. I have great pleasure in extending a very warm and cordial welcome to our Chief Guest, Sri Hemkumar Pandey, former Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India. We are indeed grateful to you, sir, for accepting our request and joining us today at this webinar on regulatory reforms for Indian direct selling industry. Sri Pandey is a highly knowledgeable person on this subject, and we all will be benefited by his thoughts and presence today. Grateful thanks to you, sir. I also welcome Mr. Gautam Bali, Madam Chavi Hemant, Mr. David Stanley, and Mr. Manoj Sirodkar. Friends, as we all know, the world economy is extremely volatile at this stage, and the growth prospects across the economies have weakened. However, with the progressive and proactive initiative taken by our government, India stands as one of the attractive investment destinations in the world even now. In this process, several organizations have tried to reach out to this ever-expanding market through different channels of distribution and marketing. Direct selling is one such alternate distribution channel which is rapidly picking up pace in the country. Today, it is practiced more than 170 countries and has a status of global industry. The Indian direct selling industry is rapidly emerging as steadily growing as an alternate sales distribution channel, boosting self-employment. However, the industry has been victimized by frequent and fraudulent activities that have impacted the goodwill of direct selling businesses. The daunting challenge for the direct selling industry in India is lack of regulatory clarity. Due to this, often direct selling companies are mistaken for fraudulent and pyramid and Ponzi schemes. Internationally, all countries have formed their national laws regarding the direct selling in the interest of consumer and help direct business to grow. The guidelines issued by the Department of Consumer Affairs have been of great help to the industry. However, many issues of the industry are yet to be resolved. In this context, we have organized the discussion. I see many industry experts on this panel, and the discussions will help us preparing our representation to the government for resolving key issues in this sector. In fact, we always go to the government and ask them for the ease of regulations on different segment of the industry. But this is the sector, this is the industry which needs clear regulation. How and which way we may focus on today's discussion. Once again, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, I welcome our chief guest, Sri Hem Pandey sir, and all the speakers and our participants attending the webinar today. May I now request Sri Gautam Bali, Chairman of the Council, to kindly present the theme address.
Thank you so much, Rajora sir. Dear industry colleagues, I welcome our chief guest, Shri Hem Pandey ji, former Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, on behalf of Direct Selling Fraternity, to webinar on regulatory reforms for Indian direct selling industry. I take this opportunity to share my thoughts on the regulatory reforms which will expedite the growth of direct selling industry in the country. At the outset, I appreciate the efforts which have been made by my industry colleagues in representing the industry before various government ministries, department at center and states to formulate and implement a mechanism which determines a course of action for the direct selling industry in India. Consistent deliberations were held with various ministries and departments such as Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Finally, on the 9th September 2016, direct selling guidelines were issued by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution under the leadership of Honorable Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Distribution, Shri Ram Vilas Paswan. We are thankful to him and his team at the ministry for understanding and incorporating the viewpoints of the industry in issuing the direct selling guidelines, which is an important milestone for our industry as it provides it with a definitional clarity. Further, I would like to thank our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi's government, for his far-sightedness in taking proactive steps for the direct selling industry. Now, there are 14 states in India which have issued direct selling guidelines in India, and the first state which notified it was Chhattisgarh, and after that, many other states have notified it. In 2019, the government released draft rules under the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 to regulate business of direct selling in India. I would not like to take much more time on discussing the details of the draft, which are there in the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. As it is based on direct selling guidelines, which were issued by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Distribution in 2016. Despite direct selling guidelines issued by many states in India and draft rules for direct selling industry under Consumer Protection Act of 2019, direct selling companies are still facing operational challenges, and still there is very less understanding of direct selling business model amongst the law enforcing agencies and the judiciary. Although in recent years, there has been a gradual change in the outlook of policymakers and judiciary towards the industry. However, the understanding amongst junior level officers of law enforcement agencies and media is still inadequate. After a substantial growth in direct selling industry over the years, it is still the most misunderstood and unacknowledged activity. And we at ASSOCHAM, National Council of Direct Selling Companies, are working overtime to chart a new roadmap for the direct selling industry, which will give it the recognition it deserves in the Indian economy. For many years now, the direct selling fraternity and its stakeholders have been asking the government for a separate legislation for direct selling industry in India, as it will mitigate the regulatory uncertainty which is impeding the growth of direct selling industry companies in India, and has created formidable hardship for genuine direct selling players in the arena. In the Asia Pacific region, which comprises of advanced and mature markets like Japan, Australia, and Korea, have specific regulatory mechanism for direct selling industry. India should also come up with direct selling legislation, which will give more impetus to the industry. Direct selling in industry in India can benefit millions of people in India and has a massive potential to grow if the government sees direct selling industry as its partner. I also urge my industry colleagues to come together and ask the government for a dedicated industry status for the direct selling industry. Continuous regulatory reforms for direct selling industry would bring the industry in India at par with global standards to generate more business volumes, attract foreign investments, and greater employment through manufacturing and MSME, alongside through the self-employment which direct selling in the Indian economy. I further take this opportunity to voice the concerns of our direct sellers who face challenges when they apply for loan with banks. We need to proactively take this issue, as direct selling is an entrepreneurial business activity as any other business venture. I am now eager to hear the deliberations from my distinguished co-panelists in this webinar, which includes Mr. Hem Pandey, retired IAS, former Secretary, Consumer Affairs, who has been responsible for bringing out direct selling guidelines in 2016. Dr. Professor O.V. Nadima from Bangalore, who has done extensive academic research on direct selling. And founder EBS, who has been working industrially for last 12 years to explain direct selling business model to masses and the policymakers in the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I would now request Mr. David Stanley to kindly address participants.
Thank you, Mr. Rajora. Good afternoon to everybody. Respected Mr. M. Kumar Pandey, our chairman, Sri Gautam Bali, my good friend and colleague, Mr. Manoj Srodkar, Ms. Chavi Hemant. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate in this webinar. I remember in 1996, when IDSA, Indian Direct Selling Association, was formed, we all got together in Hyatt in New Delhi. And so everybody said that we need to get a direct selling act in India soon. It was 25 years ago. And we've had many efforts in that direction. I remember when Chavi and me both were together in IDSA, we've gone and met all the government officials in the various departments, and we did our best efforts. Thanks to all these efforts, I think we got the DSG, direct selling guidelines. From nothing, we came to something. And also, we know that it is notified in 14 states. But we know that even though these direct selling guidelines are there, they are toothless. There are more than 450 companies which are registered there. But it is easy to get. Initially, it looked tough, but then it is easy to get registered in the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. It's just there are ready-made consultants available who give you. If I go to the consultant, they will give you a full-fledged. They will change your business plan, etc., and then you can apply for, being listed in the as per the DSG. So, and then we get listed. But we all know that out of this 450 companies, only 40-50 companies are doing legitimate business. Rest of the companies have got questionable backgrounds, and some of them do not have products, and so many things. So, and so whenever there is a dispute, when there is an issue, then immediately the authorities try to look at us through the PCMC Act. Even though the DSG guidelines are there, it is not really effective. We say that we are coming under the DSG guidelines, we are following all the guidelines, but then we are looked at with the lens of the PCMC Act. So as Mr. Gautam Bali said, we need to pursue really, in various forms, and try to get a separate direct selling act as we have in other countries. He spoke about other Southeast Asian countries. I also know about Malaysia. For example, Malaysia, you need a direct selling license to operate in Malaysia. And Malaysia and Singapore, all these countries have much before us. They started this. They have this act. Even though we have, as you all know, we have more than 5 million people who are dependent on direct sales for a living. A lot of them are women. We promote women empowerment, and in today's world, the India requires, the whole world requires wellness products, and India requires wellness products too. And if you look at the products we sell in direct sales, this wellness products form a big pie. Out of, I think it's 55-56%, if I last remember. So I think in this situation, and it's a big industry now. It started small, but now it is 18-19, it was 13,000 crores. I'm sure now it must have gone to 15,000 crores. So with all this background, I think we should put all our efforts together as industry people and try to take the help of esteemed people like Mr. M. Pandey, who knows what are the right methods to approach the government. And we also would like to take on the experience of Ms. Chavi Hemant, who's been working on the subject for more than 16 years. So we look forward to put all our efforts together to finally go for a direct selling act, which is what we've been talking about for many years, a separate act for ourselves. Thank you very much for the time given. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David Stanley, giving us the whole account of the industry and giving the background of all aspects of the industry. Thank you so much. Now I would request Mr. Manoj Sirodkar to please give us his wisdom on the subject.
Thank you. Respect to Mr. Hem Pandey, Gautam Bali, David, hi. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Gautam and David has sort of indicated some of the points connected to the law that we have or the guidelines that we have. But just to give a little bit of background, as David said, the idea of a separate act started way back. And it was again for the reason that one, industry should be regulated. There should be some understanding what the industry is. And secondly, PCMC Act was used sometimes against the direct selling companies because there are many fly-by-night operators at that particular point of time. Because PCMC Act comes under the Finance Ministry and Corporate Affairs Ministry, the first efforts were to go to them and find out how we can change that, how we can get some exclusion for direct selling industry in that. But it was, I mean, all our discussions came out with the understanding that it's very difficult to define direct selling industry in a way that it can be unique. And that is why it was not possible to put it in a particular act at that particular point of time. Also, the trade is basically governed by states, and so center cannot really come out with an act which could encompass direct selling, which is basically a trade. And so the efforts kept on happening, and thanks to Mr. Hem Pandey, who took the initiative, finally the Consumer Affairs Ministry came out with a guideline from the consumer perspective. And it was a great thing because it defined what the direct selling is, and it gave a little bit of legitimacy to the direct selling. But these guidelines were guidelines, and every state had to enact these guidelines in their state with whatever changes they want to do as they fit right. It was not binding in every state, and that's why we have only 14 states which has come out with guidelines. Those guidelines are also differ state by state. And so some states have come out with conditions which are sometimes good intentioned conditions, but little impractical conditions for some of the direct selling companies to apply. Secondly, these conditions or these guidelines come to effect, or you have to follow these guidelines only if you have an office in that particular state. But with GST happening, many companies do not really require offices in every state as it used to be when it was a sales tax type of structure. The boundaries have collapsed. People can actually work from one warehouse, if I can theoretically talk about it. And so you don't require an office in every state. And so you can actually go around the guidelines that has been come out with the state, even though you have a business there. So things are happening that way, and with this particular new structure that we have, it makes sense that we have a central guideline or law, as we are talking about, which would be applicable to everyone. Maybe one or two exceptions can be done in that particular part. The self-declaration of direct selling companies to be part of this guideline, as Gautam, David said, sometimes creates an issue because any company gives a self-declaration and comes in. After this COVID, I have at least got 4 or 5 company people coming to me or sending me emails saying that our company is closed down. Can you look for some job for me? And these are the smaller companies in the country, companies which did not really have a long-term plan. And as soon as the COVID came, they took that particular chance and closed down their company. So we need to figure out how we can have a system where more sustainable companies can come and work in India on a regular basis. Amazon or any of the marketplaces that we have, that is one of the problems that we always face, that most of our company products are available on Amazon, sometimes at a cheaper rate, etc. Guideline very clearly says that marketplaces cannot take the products of direct selling companies. But you go to the marketplace and they would come and say, these are just guidelines, these are not law. Even though in the High Court, some of the companies like Amazon have lost a case against direct selling companies, and court has said that this is as good as a law and you should adhere to it. But still, they are fighting against that, and that is causing a problem to many other companies, which has not really gone and fought with this marketplaces like Amazon, but don't want their products to be there on the website because that vitiates the direct selling concept that we have. While the focus is on the central law, I would just like to go a little away from that, but connected to the legal part, is about FSSAI. Fantastic organization. We required it for a long time. They have come out with various guidelines for food products. I think each and every company is adhering to those guidelines for their food products on a regular basis. As David said, wellness products are becoming very, very important. And so food products are part of most of the company offerings. But one of the conditions says that each and every FBO has to have a license or a registration. And every direct seller becomes a FBO, the food business operator in their language. And so they need to have a registration. Getting a registration for an individual who wants to start a small business, a housewife, an old person, is not a very easy task. And the process is also not easy, because when this particular rule was made, what was envisaged was the person who is actually selling the product, food product, on his own, or from the shop or something, which is not the case here. Most of the direct sellers don't stock the product. Most of the direct sellers don't. They actually deal with the products which are already packed, and company has already taken the responsibility for the quality of that product. So something has to be made easy for the direct sellers to get this type of registration if it is really required. Something like an app where they go, put their information, and get some type of number from FSSAI, which they can use across the companies. Because I know that at a lower level, a lot of direct sellers would be doing the work for different companies. They don't really do only for one company. Currently, it's becoming very difficult for direct sellers as well as the direct selling companies to ensure that every direct seller is a FBO, etc. So to make that process easier will help the industry. Why I'm saying this is because the direct selling is a human oriented industry. There are a lot of people who can work there and make their living. Our prime minister talked about at one time, somebody can make a samosa or vada to earn money, and this is something like that. Their own business, a small business, they may not earn immediately a huge amount of money, but they can start earning the money, and that is why it is important that we should nurture this industry well. In India, less than 1% people are in direct selling industry even today. That is because of all this confusion that is connected to direct selling industry. But if you see the other countries, even the developed countries, the percentage of people who are working in direct selling industry is much higher. I'm not going to developed countries, just take case of Indonesia, where I think the percentage is more than 40% who are working in direct selling industry. And if we can develop a environment where people can come in and work with direct selling industry, there's an additional income they will earn, and that is good for the country per se, and in line with the Atmanirbhar concept that we have at this moment. So these are some of the thoughts that I had on this as to why we require a strong law for direct selling industry. Some more discussions can happen on a particular areas when we have question answer or something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manoj Sirodkar, giving us and highlighting the different difficulties faced by the industry at different levels with different authorities and regulations impacting the industry in different states. I would now request Madam Chavi Hemant to please, address the participants. Madam Chavi Hemant, can you hear me, please?
Unmute.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yes. Am I audible
Yeah.
now?
Yes.
Yes. So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Rajora who took this initiative of reaching out to me and sharing his vision regarding the industry. And I'm also thankful to ASSOCHAM Secretary General for giving us this opportunity to connect together during these uncertain times. So this program cannot be started without saying thank you to Mr. Hem Pandey. Sir, absolutely thankful to you very, very much. Because of you, we have a definitional clarity. Otherwise, we would still be struggling with definition running from pillar to post. So thank you so much for that. And of course, Mr. David Stanley has shared some past instances about the legislation and things like that, what we have done. But just to give a brief overview, I'll just take 2 minutes to just give a brief overview. To get these guidelines, at least from last 25 years, 2,000 plus meetings have happened, in which 1,000 to 1,500 meetings I would have been personally there, explaining every small bit detail to the reformers, to the police inspectors, to different departments, explaining that what is direct selling. Unfortunately, as we said, all the speakers who spoke to me before have very clarified that, still there is a lack of understanding. So now, before we definitely need a separate legislation, we need to find a solution that how do we educate. That is one, which is another aspect without the legislation or with the legislation. The other aspect is that globally, if we look at, there are about 1,000 plus companies which are in the business of direct selling. They have not entered India, and they have no future plans, immediate future plans or near future plans to enter India. Primary reason for that is the PCMC, Price Tip Money Laundering Banning Act 1978. It is a draconian act. Why it is draconian? One, it is a banning act. So the minute the act is banning, it becomes draconian. Second, when Amway CEO got arrested and was in custody for more than 2 months, it has sent a very wrong signal to the global world outside India, which is not a good sign. And companies are still scared, and they don't want to come to India at all, primarily because of this reason. Whereas there are other countries which are smaller than India, and there the business is growing at a faster pace. So we need to look at, when we have the global economy, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. We have we also have the buying purchasing power parity. Why is it that we are unable to reach a certain height of turnover in India vis-a-vis other smaller countries? So definitely the environment is an issue. How do we resolve the environment? There are 3 parts to it, which I'm going to talk about. Number 1, why do we need a separate legislation? Number 2, the question is very important. How are we going to protect consumers from serial individuals who operate under the garb of direct selling? I will explain what I mean by this. And number 3, how does it benefit the industry and how does it benefit the economy? These are the 3 facets, 3 questions which I'm going to take and answer, that how a separate legislation can help around these areas. So number 1, we need a separate legislation. It has been accepted by all of us that we need it primarily because of business to go and ensure that uncertainty is removed to a larger extent, and we continue to beat around the bush. Instead, we come up with something, even if it is toughly regulated, at least we have a place where it is a single window clearance. Direct sellers, like Mr. Gautam Bali said, they do not get any bank loans. In fact, many direct selling companies have also faced multiple challenges over the last 20 years that their bank accounts has been closed at 1 day notice just because RBI issued some circular. So whether it is, and it doesn't matter whether you are an Indian company or whether you are a foreign company, the bank problem has been impacted to direct sellers and to direct selling companies also. Now moving forward, the other question question comes out that how are we going to protect the consumers at large? What happens, I'll give you an example, that what happens is someone comes to my place, says that, I have a very good business opportunity and I know you for 20 years, why don't you join me? Now, please listen, he is asking that, why don't you join me? I am representing so-and-so company. So in good faith, I say, okay, fine, I'm ready to join. Now he introduces me to himself, whereas he does not introduces me to the company. So there are and I started, okay, fine, because I know him, I end up paying 5,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees or even 1 lakh, because the business opportunity showed to me is very glamorous and very glossy, and I get attracted to it. The issue is that they do not introduce you to the original company which they are representing. They ask, okay, you transfer the money to my account and I will do everything. In a matter of months, they are vanished. And then the person goes to the police station, files a complaint. There are multiple cases of people, individuals, taking general public at ransom. How do we resolve this? That is why we need a separate legislation, because direct selling companies have to be accountable. We should also look at the direct sellers are also accountable of the actions which they take, as there are today, as we speak, we have more than 60 lakh direct sellers associated with the industry. Definitely companies cannot monitor everybody's way of selling and what they are doing. And when Mr. David Stanley said that there are 457 companies and only about 40 to 50 are the ones which are actually doing legitimate business, this is the other companies which are not doing or promoting it, but their direct sellers are. Because everybody is looking at earning and seeing that, whether I can apply for a shortcut to see that I can meet both ends of my life. Like Manoj mentioned just now, that, a lot of people have called him for jobs, etc. And they had to shut shop because of the uncertain times. Whereas in this panel only, if the separate legislation comes, we have examples that in such in so much hardship of regulation which the industry has been facing over the 25 years. There are two panelists over here, Mr. Gautam Bali, Vestige India, and Mr. David Stanley. Vestige is a 16-year-old company, started in the midst of problems, and still they have been able to make a mark. Can we imagine the future of the industry if we have a suitable regulation protecting everyone, every stakeholder? And Mr. David Stanley's company, Helix, is about 5 years old. Still, they are holding the fort. The issue is that how many months, days, and years can legitimate people continue to hold the fort and promote economy in India? So when we want the GDP of the we want to our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has very clearly given all of us a task of reaching 5 trillion economy. How are we going to reach? So we need a regulation. We need to protect. How are we going to become vocal about local? Again, we need regulation. So this is not a point of discussion. This is what do we need to do so that this time regulation comes and we do not just sit and talk about it. So how ASSOCHAM can help, how we can learn from ASSOCHAM's fraternity, that how we can take this issue forward. The last, which I said, that how it is going to benefit the economy. The benefit of the economy is reaching 5 trillion, protecting the consumer and giving full rights to the direct sellers. So are we ready for it is the question. FSSAI is an issue. Manoj has absolutely rightly pointed out that there is an issue. Now, e-commerce is another factor which is inhibiting growth. Now, can we come for a national retail policy which includes e-commerce, or non-store retail policy, instead of arguing and having difference of opinion between each sector? Because finally all of us, whether it is e-commerce, retail, non-store retail, direct selling, we all are contributing to the economy. So can, with the help of Mr. Hempande, because he's everybody just loves him for his efforts which he has done, and along with ASSOCHAM, can we combine together and do something bigger than just looking at a legislation for direct selling? Why don't we resolve the issues which e-commerce has over closed door meetings and see what can be done in a manner which is structured and beneficial for the public at large? So this is what I wanted to share. about how we can proceed forward on the business of mimic selling. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Highlighting all the different problems faced by the industry and also giving some of the suggestions how we can work on it and how we ASSOCHAM can take up certain issues. Now we are joined by Mr. Dr. Sahid. Welcome to you. Welcome for this forum. And I would request Mr. Sahid to please give his perspective on the sector. Mr. Sahid, can you hear me, please? Am I audible? No, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yeah, now it is okay, yes. Please.
Yeah, it was unmuted. Yeah, good evening all. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. ASSOCHAM, Gautam Bali, Shavi Hemant, David, and many others. I'll give a few, but I'm not from the industry. I'm a research guy, basically. I'll just give you a brief idea about ourselves. We have an incubated company in IIT Mumbai in 2005. Then went to Harvard and MIT to do research. Then we launched in IST Hyderabad. Now we are headquarters in IIT Madras. The subject which we are researching, the biggest threat of humanity, called technological unemployment. India is going to be the biggest victim of technology unemployment, actually. According to the World Bank report 2016, 80% of the people are going to lose their job. In India, 70% of the people are going to lose their job. So now it is going to be we are going to face an unprecedented situation which is going to come. Just imagine that in India, 70% of the existing people are going to lose their job. So we have done huge research. We have been here the last decade to understand. We have gone in depth how to solve this problem. So there we find the solution as a direct selling is the solution to engage the people. So that much people are going to come to the market. I'll just give a brief idea how it is going to be happen within 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, basically we human have a two kind of a skill, basically physical skill, cognitive skill. Both these are going to be taken by technology. Give a revolution. What happened in first industry? Majority of the people we are being the farmers. It was our physical skill. So later in 100, the steam engines invention happened. We slowly moved to the machines. This is where again physical skills. So there was no much issue which happened from the upskilling and reskilling. The second industrial revolution, again the electricity is impacted. That also there was no much problem. It was also a physical skill assembly lane we can manage. The third industrial revolution which came, which is information technology. There majority of the company like TCS or Wipro or Infosys, they went to the college and taken the people trained well. So there is a big gap is coming from 40 above people. They are going to be, they are kind of a useless class to the economy. It is going to happen. Now fourth industrial revolution is coming, which is the fusion of technology, whether artificial intelligence, robotic, everything is so upskilling and reskilling is going to be very, very difficult. The existing education also, it is not going to help in much manner. To give you an example for that, where the technology is going. Operating now, when we compare to the biological intelligence versus technological intelligence, we human have the frequency of our brain have a 200 hertz, where operating frequency of existing the current technology, which is keep on upgrading, 200 gigahertz. Transmitting information speed, which when we touch a fire, we take back our hand, the information from the finger to brain, it goes and come back with through axon, it is 200 meter per second. transmitting speed of AI, it is 3 million meter per second. It is higher than the light. Now we know that when we put a Google any search, within second it will analyze a trillion data and bring to us. Computer, the brain watt is 20 watt, whereas a computer is 300,000 watt operating power. 1 week of the best brain learning, the student learning, AI can do 20,000 years of a human level research. Now we are in a step. What kind of education which is going to help the student? So we all are confused. We are in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguous. The solution is direct selling. This is what I want to deliver the message, the takeaway. So huge opportunity is going to come to the direct selling industry. So direct selling is the solution of 21st century. In the beginning, at least to another decade. Thank you very much. This is my takeaway.
Thank you, Mr. Syed, for highlighting the different aspect of direct selling and how the technology and how the at school level, at the management level, how the direct selling can be taken to the next stage.
One more, but we have started a course in IIT Madras for the direct selling, both level, graduation and PG and diploma level. We started already for the specific. We have done a huge research on the direct selling from US to Indian context and US context also both. Then we come up a course for it to help the people, to handle them, to transit to the industry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, before I request Sri Pandey sir, I would request all the participants, they can write their queries, questions, or any suggestion in the chat box, and then after, when we hear our chief guest, thereafter we can take up some of them. So now I request Sri Hem Pandey sir, our chief guest today, to kindly give his and his perspective. Sir, you had been very helpful to ASSOCHAM always, and we are grateful to you for accepting our request once again and addressing this large gathering today.
Thank you, Mr. Rajora. Thank you, ASSOCHAM. Thank you, all the learned panelists. Am I audible? Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because so thank you for this opportunity. At a time when our enthusiasm is at the lowest level, we are all stuck. This is not the way we used to meet. Particularly when I used to be in office, you were all welcome always, and I think we did very good. World has changed and will be changed, and post Corona, I guess we'll have more. But I liked Sahid's comment, and I would start from there. I was wondering, last 2-3 months of lockdown, direct selling has huge opportunity now. I think everybody is doing direct selling these days, reaching the stuff to a door. So your preferred customers, I hope those who are in the industry, preferred customers must be liking it, that you are reaching the products at their doorstep. I mean, that's what the direct selling is all about. I'm grateful to all the speakers, all the fellow panelists for remembering me. It took me to year 2016, when I joined as Secretary Consumer Affairs, and this was one of the tasks that came to my table that point of time, and I was just wondering because you are all from the industry. I was just wondering why this particular industry want to be regulated. Because unfortunately there's a huge deficit in our country on that aspect. We have one of the best laws, and fortunately or unfortunately, wherever I have worked in Government of India, I have worked in regulatory ministries. I was in mining for about 5 years. I was in environment for 8 years. And ultimately, I retired from consumer affairs. So all three ministries are regulatory ministries. And I must tell you my experience with the regulation, compliance of regulation, there's a huge deficit. And I was just wondering, all the speakers, by learned speakers, were again requesting that there should be more regulations. And, I guess the solution is self-regulation. If the industry takes the lead, government will always encourage an industry where infighting is the least, where the you just heard Chavi saying only 10% of the companies that are listed, and I regret my decision in 2016 when we uploaded the list of all the companies. I regret it today. I'm reflecting. I must tell you, without doing any homework. Unfortunately, Department of Consumer Affairs is not really tuned to handle direct selling, to tell you frankly. And even today, I keep on telling wherever I go and meet, be it ITSA, FDSA, or any direct seller. Fortunately, now government has decided to transfer the subject of internal trade to the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. That is the right department, because the consumer affairs, the focus is consumer. And of course, direct selling is one industry which almost meets the 6 rights of the consumers, and the direct sellers are the ones who face the most challenging part of you are in direct interaction with the consumer. So the safety aspect, the first right, the information, right to information about the product, then the choice. Obviously, I mean, there are many direct selling companies which are now dealing with many products, but there are specific products, and that's not. But choice also, I think, and then hearing. At least in direct selling, consumer gets an opportunity of meeting the seller. So these are the 4, and remaining 2 rights: education. You do educate, direct seller does educate about the product they are selling. So out of the 6 rights, 5 rights: safety, information, choice, hearing, and education. The 5 rights are taken care by the direct selling industry, and this is the right time when we are all under lockdown, and I don't know how long it's going to be there. If we have a product, we can reach. These days new products have come in the market. Other day I was inquiring, vitamin C was not available. If some direct selling company sells genuine, I was told by my dispensary, the CGHS dispensary, the doctor told me it's exhausted in the dispensary. Then he said, even in market, he's not sure whether you will get a genuine product, genuine vitamin C. So he said, Nibu khao, Amla khao, instead of buying a medicine. If a direct selling company can sell a genuine product, and that goes without saying, whether regulation or not. If you are selling fake products, then sorry, I mean, no industry can survive. So if you are selling a genuine product, and if you want customer loyalty, this is the time. This is the time to sell, those kind of products, at least to your preferred customers. So it's a huge opportunity, and post-COVID also, I guess, this is going to be there. So direct selling industry must look forward to these opportunities which are coming, provided we come out of this mess. Many of the things about direct selling have already been mentioned, and I'm proud partner with you that at least when there were no guidelines, and as I said, that time there was nothing. So there is something to begin with. And 14 to 15 states have, and I have been party through FICCI. I have been party to many of these visits to the states, Kerala, Andhra, Telangana, Uttarakhand, and many other places. I had personally gone, talked to the people there, talked to my colleagues in those departments. And yes, unfortunately, direct selling in India has started on the wrong foot. There was a negative law regulating this, and again we are to be blamed. Those who wanted, I think Manoj mentioned fly-by-night operators, quick bucks. There are no quick bucks. Be it any industry. So people misused that. And even today, the last visit on direct selling of me with FICCI delegation was IDSA delegation was again to Hyderabad, where it took us real time to convince the industry secretary and the police officer concerned, who still have a mindset that this kind of business is nothing but a Ponzi scheme. This is really unfortunate. After 20-25 years, business which is doing $2 billion, almost 15,000 crore, and growing at 5% CAGR. And I wanted this industry, if it's going to be 5 trillion economy, at least $5 billion US dollars should come from direct selling. Of course, my exhortation to the industry is $10 billion, but the $5 billion, but genuine products. You get loyal customers, preferred customers, and if we sell proprietary products, if we initiate manufacturing, this Atmanirbhar and all this is all, if we don't manufacture competitive products in the country, we do not sell, as a consumer, I would love to. I mean, I have not changed many of the, items that I use because of the quality, because of value for money. So direct selling products, direct selling is a huge opportunity. You face the consumer directly. You build a relationship with consumer. You don't tell the price. You don't tell. First, you build a relationship. There is no other retail business anywhere in the world where you talk about product or you talk about the price. You first build a relationship. So it's a that way it's a relationship market. And once a relationship, then you don't let your relation down by selling products which are not value for money. So it's a huge thing. Fortunately, the guidelines and people who work for the guideline, they are all there may be shortcomings, but an entry has been made. My take is the subject should go to DPIIT, and the internal trade has gone there. There is no file on the subject of internal trade in Department of Consumer Affairs even today, and Consumer Affairs is not the right place. I mean, that I would urge the industry to tell the government, because promotion of industry is a job of DPIIT, so they can do. That's why there's a huge confusion, and in most of the states, consumer affairs is linked with the food department. And let me be very frank on this. Same was in Government of India, is still in Government of India. My budget as Consumer Affairs Secretary was hardly any. So no state government ever used to contact Consumer Affairs. Obviously you can't tell the states to do this, that for the consumer. Whereas your partner ministry, food, had 150,000 lakh crore subsidy itself for the food. So obviously the beeline of the people was in food department. Same is the affair with all the state governments. Food and consumer affairs is today. It's the last priority of food and consumer departments in the state, as in Government of India, to regulate this industry. So if you want to get regulated, first see even the guidelines. Decide amongst your members. There are 3-4 associations, IDSA, FDSA, many companies. Please set your house in order first. Ensure that the rules of the game are followed by one and all, that once you are strong within, any ministry would like to take you because you are adding to the economy of the country. But DPIIT is the right place. The internal trade is their subject now. Fortunately or otherwise, the Act remains. Consumer Protection Act has now direct selling mentioned. The 2019 Act has direct selling word mentioned. So that, and I think the rules are in the making, and I hope all of you are participating in sure, because my experience with the regulatory ministries, again, I would share my experience that, at the time when the rules and regulations are framed, we maintain a distance. We attend the meeting, but we don't really participate. We don't really reflect on what had gone wrong and where will we be in 10 years or 20 years from now as the threat of e-commerce. So this is the right time to address. And you must eliminate yourself away from Ponzi, that PCMC Act. You should totally alienate yourself from that. No state government, nobody should regulate you on that aspect. So I think the guidelines have tried to do that, but guidelines will become now rules. So the act can be still administered by Consumer Affairs, but the rules and regulations can be by DPIIT. So that will give you a better platform because you are an industry. And so that you must do. And I think the simple the regulation and quick. See, the worst as a regulator, I must tell you that we don't have many who decide on regulation quickly. If you have a regulation and if the decision comes after a decade or 2 decades, then it doesn't help. So you decide whether you want to have a strong regulation or you want to have a simple rules of the game, have itself regulated, and wherever government is needed, then only you should approach government. It's between you and the customer ultimately. You are preferred consumers or the consumer. So that is my take. Instead of still demanding stronger law, stronger recognition. When this Uber Ola came to this country, or many these plastic payment, there were not many regulations. There were not many regulations. So the industry, the felt need of the consumer, if you can address, if you can give value for money, if you can, an Indian consumer is very difficult. You must know. We bargain, we do many other things. So with these kind of challenges, still, if we can maintain, value for money, quality product, and we can retain the consumer, I mean those should be the focus, and that applies to all the retail business in the country. And I would encourage direct selling industry to manufacture their own products. That will gel with the present thinking. Of course, that again opens a Pandora's box because you will need simplification of regulations. So I think the simple rules of the game would be a better solution for direct selling industry. Set your house in order. That is more important because I have experiences. You get the flag because of your own pattern. So set your house in order. From that matter, the guidelines itself have given you some direction, the definition part, the segregation part. Come out of PCMC totally. I think that's a negative act, and that should not govern direct selling at all. So out of Finance Ministry, go to the Industrial Promotion Ministry across the states also. I have nothing against Consumer Affairs. Jago Grahak, Jago is their job, but that is focused to the consumer rights, mind you, not the industry rights. So you have a conflict there. So better is DPIIT. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I can go on and on, but I think Rajura Saab, it's enough. Thank you
you,
so
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving the full details of the industry and giving the advice to the industry that before we ask for the regulation, first the industry has to come out with self-regulation and a self-code of conduct. And I fully agree with you. When you were the secretary at that time, sir, we have raised this issue with the corporate affairs, finance ministry, and other, dignitaries at the top level. And the advice came to the ASSOCHAM was that it is, difficult to bring a new act, and if the act is, in place, then it is more difficult to make any change. We were advised by the senior government functionaries. So there also, and the similar advice coming from you to the industry, that first the industry has to, out with the self-regulation, and with that, if we go to the DPIIT and ask them, this is what industry is planning and what next step is, asked from the government, then they will be listening to us. And next discussion definitely we will have with the Ministry or DPIIT, sir. Thank you so much for this. I have certain, questions from the audience, one or two questions. So if we can take it up, and whoever can, answer from the panel, I would request them. The first question is regarding the attendee has given to me that income from direct selling to distributors should be considered as a business and profession instead of commission income. So I believe Mr. Gautam Bali can highlight this issue. What is this?
I'm sorry, Mr. Rajora, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is income from direct selling to distributors should be considered as business and profession instead of commission income. I mean, he doesn't want the commission or this word he is not comfortable with.
No, but that's perfectly fine. In fact, it's on a way of putting it in a different manner. Actually, it is their own business and it is their own income, right? And it's definitely a business income on which they pay the GST also, and all the expenses what they do to build up their business is actually accounted for by the chartered accountant. So yes, the companies call it a compensation plan, definitely, but as an individual, when they are building up their business, it is actually their business income. So it is nothing different.
Okay. Another, query is there that somebody wants to start a business or get into this business. So can he join on a salary, and can he join? He has mentioned that the post like silver director or diamond director or a crown director, or he has to start from a scratch, from a zero, or what kind of, qualifications or experience is required for that?
I would like to say one thing, since world over in direct selling, ever since this industry has been started, it is individuals, those who have come and built up the business, whether part-time or full-time. And if they are entitled for a salary, if they're an employee of a company, none of the companies actually allow them to build up a distribute a business, because you can't have the cake and eat it too, right? So people generally all over the world start this business on a part-time basis, and when their income exceeds their income from their job or anything else, that is the time they go full-time. Was there another part to the question, sir?
Another is the direct selling industry doesn't really follow the traditional concept of monthly salary and wages. This anomaly in the pay system is uncommon to the average Indian psyche. This is what they want, the regular income is, or the.
I think so, Mr. Him Pandey would love to answer this question.
Yeah, in fact, in many places I have said this is, I think this is a typical Indian psyche. The question coming is, have a salary be the top level. There are many other businesses. Direct selling, I guess, is the most challenging, most tough, particularly in Indian conditions. But those who are hardworking people, those who mean business in the sense that, here one learns more from the failures. because the bad ambassadors of this industry have been those who had this kind of mentality that we will become diamond, we'll have a Mercedes, that comes with a lot of efforts, and all do not become diamond or silver or whatever, member. It gives a decent, part-time to full-time. So I mean, better not to come to the direct selling. Direct selling is for the people who are hardworking, who have passion, and who do not get disappointed by the negation, by when people say no, sorry, we will not buy, or अरे अच्छा आ गए तुम वही बेचने फिर, if you are and all can't do it. I must tell you, you really need energy from the failure. And if you can overcome that, I think then even the sky is not the limit. This is what I would say. So don't have a false notion of, that's why this industry is struggling. Your bad ambassadors are those who came with this intention and left, and then they tell, no, this is all bunkam. So sorry, I mean, and I consider this most challenging and one of the best industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hello. Madam Chavi, we cannot hear you. Hello, Madam Chavi, we cannot hear you. Please unmute.
Unmute.
Okay, yes. I'm still getting the hang of it.
Yeah, we could not hear you.
Yeah. Mr. Rajora, I would like to add to what Mr. Gautam Bali said, and also Mr. Hem Pandey. Number one, the question was that, sales commission. Now, to clarify, the person who has asked this question, please understand, if we don't use the word sales commission, you will get into trouble, and also the industry will get into trouble. Because the sales commission is given to protect you. The word is used, sales commission, to protect you. If we give you the word profession, you will not be protected, because you are doing a legitimate business. Sales commission is always represented in all the books, and it is considered to be a legal thing. You are a distributor, that is also there in various books of the constitution. So be happy with the word sales commission. It is in your interest. Number one. The second thing which Mr. Hem Pandey also rightly said, that it is a tough business. It is a tough business. Indeed, it is a tough business. The issue is, sir, I would want, how do we at this juncture, when we are still struggling with PCMC, on the 7th October 2014, we were told very clearly that Ministry of Finance cannot do any changes in the PCMC Act, or cannot protect direct selling industry through this act, because if they give a waiver to us, they have other repercussions which will not protect the economy at large. Now, from there, when we have got a clear list, and that is why it was asked for Consumer Affairs Ministry to look into and see what can be done in the interim solution. So, why I am again repeating about separate legislation, so that all the stakeholders, the direct selling company, the manufacturer, and the direct seller, are equal partners and get protected. Now, issue is that since you are there in the first webinar, how we can combine together our efforts with your knowledge. Of course, we will go to the industry department, and in fact, it started with the industry department only. It is only that because we were pushed from one department to the other, and thanks to the Consumer Affairs Minister, that we were adopted over there, and we got this guideline. So that is one aspect which since we are discussing on reforms, I would really want if you can share some inputs that how we can go. There is that lot many times, since lot of research papers has already been done. There was one first paper which came, that was in 2011 by ICRIA. They had said for a separate legislation, and they also said that we should come up with a national retail policy which covers everything, because we are still fighting between each other, whether it is retail, non-store retail, direct selling, or whether it is catalog selling or telephone selling. We are still struggling with each other. So how do we get everybody united? And you rightly said, sir, that MDSA, IDSA, FICCI. Yes, I think we all as an industry are ready to partner with each other. The issue is that how do we get everyone on the same platform? And I think today in the industry, you are the only person who can actually do it. So I leave the floor to you, and I want if you can help the industry.
Hello. Madam Chavi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, there was some problem with my laptop, so my video is not there, but I am there with you, and whatever you were telling, sir, Pandey sir, any suggestion from you to the queries which made by Madam Chavi?
Well, I mean, as I said, I mean, you know, right now, I guess under Consumer Protection Act, the rules are being framed. And I guess now, because last 2-3 months I have not been updated, but I guess the rules are almost draft rules are ready. This is the right time. Whether it goes to industry, whether it remains with consumer affairs, that is secondary issue. The first thing is ensure that your concerns are included in the rules. You know, later it will be, of course, rules can be amended, but it takes time. Fortunately, in the act, only direct selling is mentioned, so you don't have to bother going to parliament and getting the act changed. Rules is a subordinate legislation and can be done by the minister in charge of a particular department. So that is also, but why go for that? This is the right time, right time. Please do your homework and see what is in the best interest of direct selling in India. And as I said, I repeat, come out of Ponzi, that PCMC Act, you know, that is PCMCS Banning Act. You must come out of that. I mean, the buying shit and money circulation scheme banning act, because so far it is, you are being governed by that. I must tell you. So that's an act. So you must come out of that. Ensure in your rules that there is not even a shadow of that law into this. And your members, please strictly follow the rules which are guidelines so far and the rules in future. You know, state governments, because if you call yourself industry, most of the state governments have robust industry departments. I mean, Government of India's industry department is more about FDI and things like that. But internal trade is mostly in the hands of either the finance ministry or in the hands of industrial promotion. So I think the right place for you is with the industry departments of the state government, and they will understand your concerns. But try to make these rules as this is the opportunity right now. Please get into it. Don't leave it to your some law expert or somebody else. You just go through it thoroughly. What each and every word matters. Go to the past cases, see the past decisions of the courts, and ensure that all is addressed. And ultimately, it's a peer-to-peer selling. That is what. And you know, one makes money by commission. You know, the sale, the commission from the sales gives the income. So it's as simple as that. So you know, and ensure that the rules are framed as you want today. Don't regret tomorrow. Please remember, and I said I have almost 14, 15 years of experience in Government of India in regulatory ministry, and I have seen all of you coming to us regretting that time we did not realize that this will be bad. Today is the opportunity. Please ensure that rules are framed as you want it. But you will have to be united. It's not that I go there and tell don't do this, don't do that. Then you know, people like me in the regulatory ministry will enjoy the divide. You know, so please get united. You know, my experience with one of the other thing, Gamma portal, grievance against misleading advertisement. You know, that was left to the industry, but I don't give them good marks. There also is 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. So the industry is not united there also. So industry has to be united. And if all of you agree to some basics, you will prosper. And I have full faith that $5 billion US to $10 billion US industry in coming years. Direct selling, strictly direct selling in India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, one last query from you, then we will be closing the discussions. I have received some query saying that as per the current guidelines, different states are interpreting in different way. So if the industry is facing some problems, so can they go back to the Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, or they should go back now to DPIT to resolve the issue as per the guidelines?
Yeah, so far it's Consumer Affairs. Consumer Affairs is administering the guidelines, number one, till you have
Yes,
the
sir.
new rules, which I guess, so as on date, it's Consumer Affairs Department in all the states and also in Government of India. I'm talking about the future. I'm talking about the future today. And there is confusion in the states because the priority of the consumer department in the states is least on this aspect because they are overburdened by the food part of it. Because nobody is in full charge of consumer affairs in the states. Let me, and they hardly have time for you. So best is you set your house in order, and when the regulator is otherwise busy, so they will only focus on your negative aspects. They do not know that so many ladies get empowered, so many ladies are getting employment, people are getting part-time employment. Consumers are happy with the genuine value for money products of direct selling. This gets ignored by regulator when they listen only the negatives. So why they are overburdened? They are more busy with the food work than most of them are additional charge. Secretaries, none of the secretaries are fully in charge. A director level officer, middle level officer is there, and obviously the quality of regulation gets compromised in these kind of scene when the positive aspects of direct selling are not hammered. You have many strengths. Your weaknesses are very limited, and weaknesses are because of the fly-by-night direct sellers. So please eliminate those weaknesses. Doesn't matter who in the government handles you. I mean, if you are strong within, nobody can impact you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I would request any panelists have any last word to say so that we can now proceed towards closing the session. Mr. David Stanley or Mr. Manoj Sirodkar, Madam or Mr. Bali, anybody, please.
I would really like to thank everybody for being a part of this webinar. And thank you so much, Pandaji, for wonderful insight. Yes, definitely we have come to a conclusion that a legislation is very much required for us so that all these fly-by-night operators, they should not be able to spoil the image of the industry. One of the major intake is all those companies which are really doing well in India are the ones which are self-regulated, right? And if we talk about the current government also talks about skill India, that is what direct selling gives skill to the people. We talk about women empowerment. Majority of the distributors or consultants, whatever terminology we might use, are women. So we are empowering them. We are in this dangerous times where people have lost their jobs and are going to be losing their jobs, right? Our industry is the one which is creating self-entrepreneurs. And when we are talking about Atmanirbhar, and that's what we are doing, actually making people self-reliant, and as organizations, as companies, whether it is go vocal for local or for Make in India, we have got to all be together and support all these initiatives which our government is taking, and definitely to protect the right of the consumers and the distributors. That's the point which I want to make, and let this troublesome time be over. Let's get together and really push so that we can have a legislation as soon as possible. I know, Chavi, you have been working for 25 years. It is going to be difficult to get it soon, but we can definitely hope for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. David Stanley. Anything from your side?
Yeah, it was a very good experience, and nice to know that there are a lot of people working on the, bringing the regulation. So thanks to all of you for inviting me, and thanks Mr. Hem Pandey and Mr. Gautam Bali and Chavi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manojji. Manojji, any?
I first want to thank Mr. Hem Pandey for the great guidance that he has given. I think as a association, we should take that particular step and see how we can resolve that. Wherever we need help, as Chavi said, Hem Pandey sir, your cooperation and support is required. It was a great discussion. Different points came out. I think it's a good start again to look at how we can go about having a better regulation so that the industry can go. The main part is how industry can go. With that, thank you very much for giving me this particular chance. Thank you.
Madam Chavi Hemant, you have to work closely with ASSOCHAM in charting out the future course of action on this. And anything from your side?
Yeah, there are two things which I would like to sum up the points, 3 or 4 points which were discussed by everyone, and I would like to share one more point. Number one is that if we look at the definition of retail in the 7th schedule, it is always called markets in pairs. So from there we have developed to different kind of retail formats. So one, we need the support of the industry, but we also should look at going to Niti Aayog, because both the people, the CEO Mr. Amitabh Kant and even Mr. Rajiv Kumar, they both understand the industry very well. So this is the time that we also rope in and request Niti Aayog to support as to how we can combine together. And once Niti Aayog says that everyone has to be together, whether it is e-commerce or whether it is direct selling, stop arguing between each other, let's resolve it. I am sure it can be resolved. So the issues which were discussed were, number one, separate legislation. Immediate work which all of us have to do together is look at whatever the rules have been given, how we can improve upon it, and whether we are accepting or not. That is number two. The third is that can we rope in how do we go together to the industry ministry and also to Niti Aayog to combine our efforts, so that how is it that we get ourselves alienated from PCMC? Because that is going to be our biggest challenge. The way forward would be that we work closely with all the departments, so that if not in near future, then in the long term of future, maybe in a span of 5 years, we have something clear. The reason I'm clarifying 5 years, because I know that it takes time. So it is not going to happen overnight, but this is the time where we can push push the government, the PMO, also that please look at our industry. We are here to promote self-empowerment and contribute to the 5 trillion economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, I have, grateful thanks to Sri Hem Pandey sir for being the chief guest of today's discussion. We are indeed grateful to you, sir, for accepting our request. And one more request, that whenever we organize some discussion, sir, you will be keep guiding us. We need your blessing, sir. Next time also I'll disturb you.
I am with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So we close this with every expert, all the participants join me, and on behalf of ASSOCHAM, grateful thanks to you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
All the best. All the best.